The night air hung heavy over the Winchester estate, carrying the scent of old wood and forgotten prayers. Inside the mansion, the labyrinthine halls seemed even longer now, the corridors whispering as though alive. Every corner felt wrong, distorted, bending under the weight of something unseen. Sarah Winchester had grown frail, but her mind, though cracked, burned with an unrelenting fire. She believed the spirits had begun to speak to her again, more directly this time. The seance room had become her only refuge. Candles lined the walls, wax melting onto the floor like tears. The architect, now pale and trembling from sleepless nights, stood before her. His hands shook as he presented new sketches, doorways that led into solid walls, staircases climbing to nowhere, windows that opened into the dark void of another room. "They told me these must be built," Sarah said, her voice hoarse but certain. "Each room traps another soul. Each door keeps the darkness at bay. We must continue. If we stop, they will take us all." The architect hesitated. He had once believed she was simply mad. But after the last week, after hearing footsteps echo in hallways that had no floors, he wasn't so sure anymore. That night, as the workers hammered beams into place, the mansion groaned. Nails bent in strange ways. Boards refused to align, as if the house itself resisted human touch. A laborer swore he saw a face pressed against the glass of an upstairs window, a woman's face, pale and expressionless, watching them with hollow eyes. But when he pointed it out, the window was gone. Sarah's nights grew longer. She wrote feverishly in her journals, filling page after page with crooked handwriting. "The guilt cannot die," one entry read. "They demand remembrance through confusion. The maze must never end." Outside, the neighbors had begun to whisper. Some claimed to see lights moving behind boarded-up windows. Others spoke of faint cries drifting through the night wind, too human to be imagination. The mansion was alive. They said an organism fed by Sarah's sorrow, but what no one knew was that Sarah had started hearing a different voice. This one wasn't pleading or weeping like the others. It was commanding. It told her to dig deeper beneath the foundations of the house, where the oldest part of the land slept. Late one evening, she ordered her workers to open the cellar again. The architect protested, but her authority was absolute. Lanterns flickered as the crew descended into the cold earth. The deeper they dug, the stranger things became. The soil was black and wet, though it hadn't rained in weeks. A foul odor rose from below, decay mixed with something metallic. Then they found it. A chamber sealed with thick planks, older than the mansion itself. The wood crumbled under their tools, releasing a gust of icy air that blew out their lanterns. When the lights returned, they saw carvings along the stone walls, symbols none of them recognized. At the center of the room lay a small wooden box, wrapped in tattered cloth. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes wide. She ordered everyone out. Only she and the architect remained. With trembling hands, she opened the box. Inside was a revolver Winchester rifle's barrel, cut and shaped into something ceremonial. Alongside it, a single bullet. The architect stepped back. "Madame, what is that?" Sarah smiled faintly. "A promise," she whispered. "The first bullet. The curse began here." The candlelight danced across her face, revealing tears she hadn't realized were falling. She turned to the architect, her expression vacant. "Do you understand now? The spirits were never trapped here. I was. They built this prison around me. Each room I added chained me closer to them." He stared at her, speechless. "Then why keep building?" "Because if I stop," she said, her voice breaking, "the house will finish itself." Suddenly, a thunderous crack echoed through the cellar. Dust rained from above. The walls trembled, groaning like a living creature. One of the support beams split in half, sending debris crashing down. The architect grabbed Sarah, dragging her toward the stairs as the ground shifted beneath them. When they emerged into the hallway, everything had changed. The corridors were rearranged. Doors that once led to the garden now opened into empty rooms. The mansion had shifted again, as if it had rewritten itself. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching the box to her chest. "It's awake," she whispered. "The house is alive." Over the next few nights, no one slept. Workers fled the estate, refusing to return. Those who remained claimed to hear hammering deep in the walls even after tools were set down for the night. A shadow moved through the upper floors, sometimes shaped like Sarah, other times not. The architect began marking the walls with chalk, trying to map their paths, but every morning the layout changed. It was as though the house knew what he was doing, and corrected itself to keep its secrets. Then, one night, Sarah called him again to the seance room. The air was electric, cold, thick with the smell of burning wax. Candles flickered violently as she sat in the center, holding the revolver barrel and the bullet in her lap. They want me to finish it, she said softly. They say the 13th floor must be completed. There is no 13th floor, he argued. You never designed one. She smiled. That's the point. At that moment, the house shook violently. The walls seemed to breathe, the wooden beams groaning under an invisible weight. The architect stumbled back as Sarah rose to her feet, eyes wide in trance. They're here, she whispered. All of them. From somewhere deep within the mansion came a chorus of whispers, like hundreds of voices speaking over one another. The architect covered his ears, but the noise seeped into his mind. He could feel their words, their rage, their grief. Sarah lifted the bullet to her lips and murmured something unintelligible. Then she dropped it into the revolver barrel, sealing it. The final room, she said. The one they can never find. The lights went out. The architect woke hours later on the floor, surrounded by shards of glass. The séance room was empty. Sarah was gone. Only the revolver barrel remained, lying where she had been sitting, still warm to the touch. He ran through the halls calling her name, but the mansion swallowed his voice. The front doors were locked from the inside. The air felt heavy, charged with something unnatural. Then, faintly, he heard footsteps above him, soft, deliberate, moving across a floor that shouldn't exist. He turned toward the grand staircase and froze. The steps now climbed higher than before, far higher. The 13th floor had appeared, he whispered. My God, she built it. The creaking of the staircase echoed as the footsteps grew louder, descending slowly toward him. He couldn't see who or what it was. The air turned cold enough to fog his breath. Sarah, he whispered. The voice that answered wasn't hers. The house was silent when dawn broke, a silence so deep it seemed to press against the walls themselves. The architect stood at the bottom of the grand staircase, his eyes fixed on the shadows of the newly formed 13th floor. His hands trembled, his mind spinning between disbelief and terror. The mansion had changed again. It had grown, twisted, and now stretched into realms no human blueprint had ever designed. Sarah Winchester was gone, or perhaps the house had taken her. He hesitated, then began to climb. Each step groaned, the temperature dropping with every rise. Cobwebs clung to the banister like ghostly fingers. Halfway up, he saw faint handprints in the dust, small, delicate, like a woman's. They led upward. Mrs. Winchester, he called, his voice swallowed by the house. When he reached the landing, he realized the corridor ahead shouldn't exist. The architecture made no sense. Ceilings too low, walls at crooked angles, doors set halfway into the floor. It felt like stepping inside a fever dream. The wallpaper was damp, the air thick with the smell of smoke and roses. Somewhere down the hall, a piano played a single, repeating note. He followed the sound, and as he moved closer, the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting subtly, as if the house itself was alive. Finally, he reached a door slightly ajar, golden light spilling from within. He pushed it open. The music stopped. Inside, the room was immaculate. In the center stood Sarah Winchester, dressed in black silk, her back to him. Mrs. Winchester, he whispered. She didn't turn. You shouldn't have come here, she said quietly. This floor isn't meant for the living. He took a step forward. Please, you have to leave this place. The house, it's not safe anymore. She turned then, her eyes hollow yet strangely peaceful. Safe? There is no safety. Not here. Do you think these walls protect me? They are my penance, my apology to every soul touched by the Winchester name. Her voice trembled. I've heard them for years, every whisper, every scream. They wanted justice, so I gave them a maze, a home for their torment. The architect felt his throat tighten. But it's consuming you. It's not justice anymore, it's hunger. She smiled faintly. You're right, the house is alive now. It doesn't need my hands to build anymore. The candles flickered. From the corners of the room, faint whispers rose, swirling like wind. Then let's leave, he urged. Burn it down if we must. End this curse. Sarah's expression softened. You still don't understand, do you? If you burn the house, you burn me too. Suddenly, the light dimmed. The walls began to tremble. Somewhere deep within the house, a door slammed. Then another, and another, and another morbid heartbeat. Sarah closed her eyes. They're coming. The architect spun around. At the far end of the hall, shadows thickened. Shapes began to emerge, vague silhouettes, moving toward them with a sound like rustling paper. Run, he shouted, but Sarah didn't move. She raised her hand, and the ghosts froze. They only follow me, she said softly. They always have. Then let me help you, he pleaded. Tell me what to do. She turned to the piano. Finish the song, she whispered. That's how it ends. As she sat down, the air grew heavy. The melody began haunting and beautiful. With each note, the house groaned deeper, its walls flexing, beams cracking. Then, Sarah hit the final key. The sound rang out like thunder. The windows shattered. The floor heaved violently. A deafening roar filled the mansion as hundreds of voices cried out in anguish and relief. The architect fell to his knees as wind and light exploded from the piano. When it stopped, everything was still. He opened his eyes. The room was empty. The piano was gone. So was Sarah Winchester. Only her locket remained on the floor, cracked open, revealing a faded photograph. "It's over," he whispered. But as he turned to leave, he saw the architecture shifting again. Slowly, silently, the hallway began to change. Doors moved, stairs retracted. The house was rebuilding itself. He ran through the corridors, but every turn led him deeper inside. Then he heard her voice, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Do not mourn me. The house must live. It demands a keeper." The front door appeared. He shoved it open and collapsed outside. He turned back, gasping. The 13th floor was gone. Weeks passed. One evening, a package arrived at his office. Inside was a small brass key and a note. "For when the hammer calls again," he froze. The floor beneath him creaked. On his desk, the key shifted slightly, as if nudged by an invisible hand. And from far away, the wind carried the faintest echo of a woman's voice, calm, determined, eternal. "Keep building. The mystery of the Winchester house has finally reached its chilling conclusion. But is the curse truly over? Or has it only found its next builder?" If this story captivated you, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Don't miss our next video where another legend is waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for watching.